Good day, duelists! These are Kaijudo booster packs that I have gathered throughout the years. Now, I don't actively collect Kaijudo cards, but I do have a whole bunch of pre-con decks. Some unboxings of such decks might be coming to the channel soon, stay tuned for that. And it turns out that a whole bunch of Kaijudo pre-cons and products come with included booster packs. So that's how I ended up with these. I've had no real interest to open them until now, but I guess some of you might enjoy watching this, so this is as good a time as any to rip them all open. I don't know that much about Kaijudo, but I did some research before the video and I tried my best to arrange them chronologically so that we can open the boosters in the order they were released. With that out of the way, let's start with the very beginning, Dojo Edition, the first ever released Kaijudo cards. And at the very beginning, these cards were a lot like Duel Masters cards, like the effects and such. They were just Duel Masters cards but with slightly changed numbers. But over the years, Kaijudo did evolve into its own thing, so towards the end we will probably see some more unique things. But for now, for the first few sets that we'll be opening, we might be seeing some familiar faces. We will also be getting these codes that back in the day you could redeem to play the online game, get like extra things in the online game, but of course now the site is dead since the game is dead, so I'll just leave the code on screen, I guess. Let's start from the very beginning. We have Forest Hornet, which in Kaijudo it's a 5 mana 3000. When this creature enters the battle zone, choose one of your other creatures. It gets power 3000 until the end of turn. This was of course just a 4 mana 4000 vanilla back in Duel Masters. I guess I should clear all of the booster packs up so we have some space to lay down the cards that we get. Let's move these out of the way. So, Forest Hornet. Then we got Blinder Beetle, which was Miel Vizier of Lightning back in Duel Masters. It's a 3 mana 1000, and when it enters, it taps a creature in the battle zone. Then Comet Missile, which is just Critical Blade from Duel Masters, but it's in fire. So unlike the Comet Missile from Duel Masters, it no longer has the 6000 power restriction, it just destroys something that has blocker. Brain Squirmer, of course our Horrid Worm friend from Duel Masters, is just a 2 mana 2000 vanilla in this game. Fluorogil Manta, it's a 3 mana 4000 blocker, the classic water can't attack blocker. Then Vikorakas, Deep Sea Scavenger. When this creature enters the battle zone, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. Wow, this card is quite dogshit. 5 mana 3000 for this effect, it doesn't even draw you a full card. Brave Giant, 7 mana 7000 double breaker. They really did Headlong Giant dirty. I mean, Headlong Giant wasn't that good in Duel Masters either, but here it's absolute dogshit. Then we got King Bullfang, which is again a 6 mana 6000 double breaker. It's interesting that they gave big chunky double blockers as like non-foil versions. Like this is an uncommon, you can tell from the 2 stars here, and this one's a rare, you can tell from the 3 stars here. So back in base set in Duel Masters, these double breaker were reserved for the like premium cards, for the foils, for the varies and super rares. But now in Kaijudo you get them at uncommon and rare slots, which is nice. It gives like new players these big chunky things to fight with. And we got a foil, we got Gillaflame the Assaulter. It's a fast attacker, 4 mana 5000, and at the end of the turn return this creature from the battle zone to the hand. Interesting, it seems like they had these like speed attackers right from the get-go, which is something. We had to wait all the way up until set 5 in Duel Masters to get them. So I guess since we have a whole bunch of boosters to open, I will just put all of the commons in one pile and the uncommons in another, the rares in one pile, and then the foils I would just keep there on display. So a foil from the very first booster pack, that's a sign of good things to come, isn't it? Oops. I guess I saw one card got spoiled. Next up, another Dojo Edition booster pack, and let's start from the start. We have Logoscan, which was Energy Stream in Duel Masters, the classic 3 mana draw 2 cards. Let's just move these a bit here to make it easier for me to put them in the appropriate pile. Then Draglide the Swiftest, again another speed attacker. It seems like Fire really got a whole bunch of speed attackers. Rumbling Pterosaur, it's a 5 mana 5000 vanilla. It's a Rumbling Pterosaur Ray. Like the anime was a big selling point for Kaijudo, and you'll see that a whole bunch of flavor tags just have like quotes from the anime and such. But the problem is that the cartoon for this show really kinda sucked, or at least in my opinion, and they didn't mention the card game at all, which was a bit weird. Anyway, we have Skeeter Swarmer, which is just our friend Bloody Skeeto from Duel Masters. Draken Weaponsmith, 2 mana 1000, power attacker plus 2000. Then we have Ghost Spy. When this creature is banished, your opponent chooses and discards a card, then you may draw a card. Interesting, so it's like a +2 in card advantage when it dies. That's not a bad card, that's really not. Little Hissy, 3 mana 2000, this creature can attack untapped creatures. Then Riding Bone Ghoul, which for some reason they made into Scissorai with 5 mana 4000. And finally, our rare is Splinter Claw Wasp. It's a 5 mana 3000, power attacker plus 4000, and again a double breaker. I think this is Deathblade Beetle from base set and Duel Masters, right? But they put it at rare slot. No foil in this one, but let's see for the next pack what we get. Again, another Dojo Edition booster pack. We have Aqua Soldier, which was just Aqua Vehicle, I guess. 2 mana 1000 vanilla. Another Forest Hornet. Another Blinder Beetle. We've seen these before. Another Comet Missile. These are like 3 cards that we've seen in the very first pack as well. Brain Squirmer, we've seen this one. Riding Bone Ghoul, we've seen this one. A new card, Hydro Spy. It's when this creature enters the battle zone, you may draw a card. So they really nerfed Aqua Hulkus. They made it cost 1 more mana and have 1000 less power than in Duel Masters. We have Dianork, or rather Keeper of Clouds. And finally another Splinter Claw Wasp. I'm not really sure how many cards the first set had, but we are seeing a whole bunch of duplicates. And now we're moving on to the next booster pack, which is Rise of Duel Masters. We are moving up in the word, more cards to open, more things to see. And we have Brain Squirmer again. I guess the difference from this one is that this one said first edition on it. Was this just a reprint set? I really don't know Kaijudo sets. I really don't know what was happening. I guess they had a bunch of reprints and then some new cards on top, probably. Stalker Sphere, 2 mana 2000. Draken Weaponsmith, we've seen this one before as well. Skeeter Swarmer, we've seen this one. Three-Eyed Dragonfly, we haven't seen this one. Advanced Scout, when this creature attacks, choose one of your other creatures, it gets power plus 2000 until the end of turn. And we have Bolshak Dragon, wow! They did this guy dirty, they put him at a rare slot, it's no longer a foil, but it's the exact same effect as in Duel Masters, I guess. And we have a foil! Razorkiller Puppet, Slice and Dice. When this creature enters the battle zone, your opponent reveals his or her hand, you may choose a card from it and your opponent discards that card. That is really not bad, like we had this effect in Duel Masters on a card called Scheming Hands, and that was 5 mana and it didn't come with a 3000 power body. I think this card would see play in Duel Masters if it was printed. So our second foil, we'll just put it over here. Then King Ponyta's, this creature can be blocked. 6 mana 4000 for this creature can be blocked. This artwork was dogshit in Duel Masters too, and it seems like they kept it for consistency. And Barrage, which is actually better than Burst Shot because it only destroys enemy creatures that have power 2000 or less, unlike its Duel Masters counterpart, and its Duel Masters counterpart was already good and played, so there we go. Another Rise of the Duel Masters booster pack, let's see what we find in this one. We have another Logo Scan, which is a good card. Comet Missile, again. Covering Fire, choose one of your creatures, it can't be blocked this turn. I think this card cost 3 mana back in Duel Masters. I'm glad to see that they recognized that it was dogshit and made it 1 mana instead. Rumbling Pterosaur, again. Ooh, I see some shiny card in the back. I think we got another foil. 5 mana 3000, when this creature enters the battle zone, choose one of your other creatures, it gets Slayer until the end of the turn. Another Bolshak Dragon, and we have our first super rare. This is how super rares looked in Kaijudo. I think they look kinda cool. They have this silver border and this like silver foil all over the card, like in the text box and such. And it's Diabrost, Shadow Marshal. It's a 9 mana 7000 double breaker. Whenever this creature attacks, choose a Shadow Champion in your discard pile and return it to your hand. I don't think this card is all that playable. For 9 mana you want a much bigger effect, but it does look hella cool. Then we have Breach the Veil, which was Dimension Gate in Duel Masters, but this time it's a bit worse because you only look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You may take a creature and put it into your hand, so you don't get to search your entire deck. you just get to look at the top 5 cards, which is actually worse than one might think, because one big advantage of Dimension Gate in Duel Masters is that you get to look at your entire deck, and so you can tell what your shields are if you are a good player, and if you count them, you can tell what your shields are, and that's valuable information, whereas this card doesn't let you do that because you can't look at your entire deck. And finally we have Aqua Commando. If this creature would be banished, return it to your hand instead, which was the same in Duel Masters as well. Next up, another Rise of the Duel Masters booster pack. We seem to have a whole bunch of these. Brain Squirmer, man, I always love the artwork on this card, it's so cool. Stalker Sphere, I think we've had this exact same start in another booster before. Dragon Weaponsmith, Skeeter Swarmer, Three-Eyed Dragonfly. Actually, wasn't this the exact same start? I will have to rewind the video, but I'm pretty sure we got exactly Brain Squirmer, Stalker Sphere, Dragon Weaponsmith and Skeeter Swarmer into Three-Eyed Dragonfly before. I might be wrong. Konkos, General of Fear, it's a rare. Each time one of your shadow champions will be banished, you may banish one of your other creatures instead. I mean, 7 mana, 5000 for this effect is not great, but we got another foil. I'm not sure if I'm just being lucky, but the foil rate so far has been really good. I got 4 foils in like 5 or 6 packs. Anyway, this is an 8 mana 9000 with double breaker, and whenever this creature attacks, look at the top card of your deck. If it's a creature that has power 5000 or more, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. This is really like a better effect than what we've seen so far. I mean, first of all, it's better stats for cost than, for example, this guy. It's 8 mana for 9000. But also, every time it attacks, you may get a +1 out of it, which is not terrible for this time in the game, I guess. Acid Tongue Chimera is our uncommon, it's just a Slayer, it's Giga Guild from Duel Masters, and then Karate Carrot, which looks very cool. It's a 4 mana 3000 power attacker +2000, and when this creature will be banished, put it into your mana zone instead. Again, a big power bonus from Duel Masters on this one, because I think in base set and Duel Masters they had Dome Shell, I think was the name of the card, which was just this, but without the mana ramp effect, so it's just a decent card but with a ramp effect on top of it. Next up, our last Rise of the Duel Masters booster pack. Let's see what we get in this one. We've got Draxar the Soul Crusher. It's a I destroy their will to resist, the rest is just a formality. Looks cool, I guess, but obviously not the best card in the universe. Sprout, this is just Fairy Life. It puts the top card of your deck into your mana zone. This is really not bad. Then Bronze Arm Tribe, the same Bronze Arm Tribe that we got in Duel Masters, but it costs 1 mana more. To be fair, Bronze Arm Tribe was one of the most played card in Duel Masters, so the nerf was probably justified. Spectre Claw, your opponent chooses and discards a card, so it's like Ghost Touch, but instead of random they went with a choose effect. Stone Azure, it's a 3 mana 2000 with power attacker 2000 this time around. Black Feather, Shadow of Abyss, Ghostly Siphon, whenever an enemy creature is banished you may draw a card. This is Mongrel Man from Duel Masters, but it's with the art of Black Feather. This is a rare card, so they printed this at rare. The Great Arena, this card looks cool. I like the art on this one. 4 mana 3000, whenever you put a creature that has power 5000 or more into the battle zone, you may draw a card. So it seems like nature had this like big creature theme with like the Great Arena and Deathblade Beetle, all of them reward you for having creatures that have power 5000 or above. Then Dark Return, which is just Dark Reversal from Duel Masters. And finally, 3 mana for 5000 Skirmisher. Interesting. This was Poisonous Dahlia, now it's Carnivorous Dahlia instead, and it was a 4 mana 5000, which I always thought was a bit weird, because Dianork was just the same, but it also had blocker on top. So it's cool to see that they made it a 3 mana 5000, and I actually think this makes it an interesting card. Next up, we're moving on to the next set, which was Evil Fury, in which presumably they introduced evolution creatures, so let's see if we can get an evolution creature out of this one. And it seems like instead of these, like, unlock a creature things, they did some tip cards, I guess, to tell people how to play with evolution creature. When an evolution creature leaves the battle zone, all of its cards go with it, so if it's returned to your hand, all of its cards go to your hand. Good to know. Now we have Photon Squad, 3 mana for 3000. I actually don't recognize this artwork, but it looks cool as hell. I really like the Guardian artworks, or Storm Patrol as they're called in this game. And I did see something shiny behind in here, so I'm excited to see if we got like a big chunky evolution creatures. Cyber Trader, when this creature enters the battle zone you may draw a card, if you do discard a card, not bad for a 2 mana 1000. Giga Zanda, it's a 2 mana 2000 Chimera. Jet Thrust Darter, it's a 3 mana 1000 fast attacker, so it's just Rikaboo from Duel Masters, which is not a bad card. Chasm Entangler, it's a 1 mana 2000 blocker, so like Aurora Giga, but it is an Enforcer, which was Initiates in Duel Masters, and I know Enforcers were very relevant in Kaijudo because of some evolution creatures that they got. Recharge is a 4 mana, put the top card into your shield zone face down as a new shield. Interesting, so it's the nature card Mystic Inscription for Duel Masters, but it's in Light Civilization and it costs 2 less mana, which I think makes a lot of sense, both in terms of the civilization change and the cost change. I actually included Mystic Inscription in my top 10 worst cards of Duel Masters video. If you haven't watched that, you can check it out. So it's good to see that they buffed it by a whole 2 mana. And our super rare card, it's Emperor Neuron, so it's a 3 mana 5000. Let's just appreciate the artwork a little bit. It looks really cool, and it says put on one of your Cyber Lords. This creature can be blocked, and whenever this creature attacks you may draw a card. That's really not bad for an evolution creature. 3 mana 5000 Cyber Lords are a good race to evolve on, and also it gives you card advantage, so there we go. Next up we have Scavenging Chimera, which while all cards in your mana zone are darkness cards, this creature gets plus 2000 power, and has whenever this creature attacks, choose a creature in your discard pile and return it to your hand. So this is a reward for playing a mono darkness deck, presumably. It's not a bad reward, honestly. I mean, you get a 2 mana 3000 creature that gives you card advantage every time it attacks, so it does have some incentive for running a mono darkness deck. And then, I guess a mono light rewarding card, while all cards in your mana zone are light cards, this creature gets plus 2000 power and has blocker. So you get a 2 mana 3500 power blocker that can also attack, which is really not bad. Next up, we're moving on to Clash of the Duel Masters. I really like the art on this booster. I think it looks cool. I don't know what to expect out of it, so let's find out together. Oh, I guess this set must have introduced multi-civilization cards, because you get this tip card on it and it says, this set includes new multi-civilization cards, here's how they work. You have to unlock each of a card's civilizations in your mana zone before you can play it. Also, if you put one into your mana zone, it goes there tapped. I do like that they included these small little reminder cards for new mechanics. That's really a nice added bonus. Fanged Horror, 2 mana 5000, that's a good ratio, but when this creature attacks, banish it at the end of the attack. I mean, it sounds bad, but then again, it's kind of like a removal spell or delayed removal spell. You're paying 2 mana and are probably gonna kill something with it. 5 mana for 2000 plus, it's a fast attack and it has power attacker plus 2000. I saw another shiny card. Well, we're getting a lot of foils. Again, I'm not sure if I'm being lucky or if this is just the ratio of Kaijudo boosters, but if it is, or either way, I'm really not gonna complain about it. Deepward Druid, Nurturing Touch. When this creature enters the battle zone, you may put the top card of your deck into your mana zone. Memory Keeper, it's a 2 mana 2500. This creature enters the mana zone tapped. So this is probably what Gonta should have been instead of a 2 mana 4000. You get a very small power bonus for being a dual civilization card. Then we have Shimmerwing. When this creature is banished, tap target enemy creature, and it's an enforcer, which we know is relevant. Then what the fuck is this card? Golem the Striker. It's a Draken and Beastkin. 5 mana 3000, Battle Order. When this creature enters the battle zone, choose one of your other creatures. It can attack untapped creatures this turn as though they were tapped. And also when it enters, choose one of your other creatures and it gets plus 3000 power until the end of turn. So you can sort of play it and have one of your creatures destroy some other creature pretty much uncontested, which is not bad. 5 mana for 3000 and you get a pseudo removal effect. And our super rare, wow, look at this. Again, another sick looking card, absolutely beautiful. It's a dual civ card, Shadeblaze the Corruptor, 8 mana for 11,000. It's a double breaker, and when this creature enters the battle zone, target enemy creature gets minus 2000 power until the end of turn. And whenever another creature is banished, all of your creatures get fast attack until the end of turn. This is really an interesting effect. I'm not sure how you would best take advantage of it. Like, you would have to play a whole bunch of things, then swing with this guy into one of your opponent's creatures, and then all of your things get speed attacker. It seems way too narrow and situational and very overcosted, but you know what? He looks kinda cool. So again, we got 1, 2, 3, we got 6 foils out of 9 packs. So 66% foil ratio, that's actually quite insane. Again, I don't know if they bumped up the foil ratios in Kaijudo compared to Duel Masters or if I'm just getting insanely lucky, but either way, I'm not complaining. So Cyber Cyclones is a shield bath that says choose one of your creatures in the battle zone and return it to your hand. Then your opponent chooses one of their creatures in the battle zone and return that creature to your opponent's hand. So it's interesting, it's like you're getting a spiral gate effect, but you can also bounce one of your own things. Notably, if you don't have any creatures, this can still go off and bounce one of your opponents, because it doesn't say if you do. So that's an interesting, flexible card, I suppose. Freakish Test Subject, it's a Slayer and this creature can be blocked. This is Melnia, but they made it 3 mana instead of 2. Interesting, interesting. Next up, Clash of the Duel Masters again. We do have quite some Clash of the Duel Masters booster packs, which is interesting because I think this set is kinda cool. It introduced multi-civilization cards, so if it's anything like Shockwaves or Shattered Rainbow in Duel Masters, it should be quite interesting to open. And speaking of Melnia that we got before, we got the artwork for Melnia, and it's Ramis the Cloaked. It's a blocker guard, and whenever this creature blocks, your opponent chooses and discards a card. Interesting, 5 mana 5000, not the best power ratio for a blocker, but I guess if you get some card advantage out of it, it might be worth it. 2 mana 4000 and it can only attack creatures. I really wish we got some cards like this in Duel Masters that were actually properly statted. Like, this is Steel Smasher, but with 1000 power more, and I think that actually matters. I think Steel Smasher with 1000 extra power might actually be playable, especially in like early days or limited or draft formats. Dread Husk, 4 mana 3000 vanilla, creatures otherwise extinct live on in the Dead Husk. Cool. Cool, it's just a Scissorai, I suppose. Containment Field, tap a number of target enemy creatures in the battle zone equal to the number of creatures you have in the battle zone. So this is kind of like a Holy All but worse, but it can also be better because it costs 2 less mana. Interesting card, really interesting card. Aqua Strider is a 2 mana 4000 skirmisher blocker, again not bad. Blade Rush Wyvern, when this creature enters the battle zone, banish target enemy creature that has blocker. Then we have Featherfin Stalker Slayer, whenever this creature attacks you may draw a card. This is not bad, I always like cards that give you card advantage, and this is not a bad power ratio for a Slayer card. Then we have Soul Schism, target enemy creature gets minus 4000 power until the end of turn, and a creature that has power 0 or less is banished. So this basically just kills something with power 4000 or less, but it's a bit better than that because you can stack up the spells and also you can just make something weaker so you can trade into it, perhaps. And finally we have Wave Lancer, which is 5 mana for 5500, and it's a blocker that says if this creature will be banished, return it to your hand instead. I can see this being very annoying to deal with in like a limited format because it's a blocker that's quite strong, 5500, and then it can keep blocking and returning to hand. Can be annoying. So one interesting thing I didn't mention so far is that these booster packs, they have 9 cards, whereas Duel Masters booster packs have 10, so that's a change that they did. Oh, this is different. I thought all of them would have this, but no, this has Duel Your Friends Online. The exciting new Kaijudo Online player vs player feature lets you and your creatures challenge your friends. This was really cool actually. I did play this back in the day, although when I played it I think you could only fight AI opponents, but it was cool. It was before like we had Master Duel or Hearthstone or these like online trading card games. Kaijudo had an online client, and I really think that if they'd focused on it more, it might have really helped with the card game success. Full Metal Lemon, I always love how this card looks. It's a blocker skirmisher, and when it would be banished it's put into your mana zone instead. I saw another shiny card, so we're getting another foil, Jesus. Then 4 mana 3500, when this creature attacks, tap target enemy creature that is level 3 or less. Not terrible, I guess. 3 mana, draw 2 cards, then discard a card, so it's like Energy Stream or Logo Scan in Kaijudo, but you get to discard something, but it's also a shield trigger. It's interesting, upsides and downsides, I do like these cards. Then a name I'm not even gonna bother to pronounce, it's a 4 mana 2000 Venomous Sting. Whenever this creature attacks, target enemy creature gets minus 1000 power, so it can be a pseudo removal every time it attacks, but also it can just weaken something so it can trade into it. Then again, this guy that just kills a blocker when it is played. Then we have Baron Burnfingers, 2 mana 3000, play with fire. When this creature is banished, choose one of your shield, this creature breaks that shield. So it has a good cost to power ratio, but it does break one of your shields. Though interestingly, because of how this is worded, I think you can actually use the shield trigger ability of the shield that it broke. So I really like this card looks cool. Then we have our super rare, look at it, it's Quilla Scourge. Again, the silvering foil makes the card look beautiful. This was the art for the big wave striker guy, Kaijudo or whatever it was called in Duel Masters. Here it's a 9 mana 8000 that says Double Breaker. When this creature enters the battle zone, each player discards their hand. Wow. So it comes with the symmetrical Lost Soul effect, which is already good. And when this creature enters the battle zone, your opponent can't attack or block with creatures until the start of your next turn. Interesting. I can see how this could be useful in some slow control decks. But more importantly, it's another foil that we can add to our collection. Then we have Sunsprout Quartz, 4 mana 3000, and each of your other light and water creatures get plus 1000 power, which is really not bad. And finally, we have an evolution creature, and this is what I was saying about enforcers getting a lot of evolution creatures. I'm not sure if this was one of the good ones, but it's a 2 mana for 4500 blocker that you can play. And the final Clash of Duel Masters booster pack. Let's see what we find in this one. Again, do your friends online. And for the creatures, we have Jacalax, which we've seen before. Skeleton Soldier, it's a 1 mana 2000 that when it wins a battle, banish it. Smolderhorn, 3 mana 4000 fast attack, but it has Skirmisher. This creature can attack only creatures. That's a weird ability to put on this. This is like so narrow in application. Then we have Blade Rush Wyvern, again it destroys a blocker. Full Metal Lemon that we've seen before. Oh, and we got Keeper of Laws. This card was a real staple in Kaijudo as far as I'm aware. It's a really good anti-control card. While you have another creature in the battle zone, this can't be the target of your opponent's spells and abilities. And whenever your opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card. So you can see how this can be very annoying for control decks to deal with. And another foil, just a very rare this time around. You can tell from its 4 stars here instead of 5, but it's an 8 mana 11,000 power creature, Double Breaker, and whenever one of your other creature loses a battle, return the winning creature to its owner's hand. Interesting. That's actually a cool effect to stick on an already big body. Like we got this kind of creature in Duel Masters in like Miyar or Girial, or even later Galuzial Dragon, which was a joke of a card. But this is just that, but it also has a decent effect on top of it, which I like. And again, it's another foil. We got a lot of foils, 8 foils so far, which is quite crazy. Then Lizardskin Puppet, it's a 2 mana 1000 Slayer, and this creature attacks each turn if able. Then Spore Siren, 4 mana 3000. When this creature enters the battle zone, choose a creature in your discard pile and put it into your mana zone. So it's a 4 mana 3000 that ramps you up, but you need to have a creature in your graveyard to be able to use its effect. We've only got 5 more booster packs to open, so let's get into it. Shattered Alliances. I think the gist of this set was that you got dual civilization creatures, but from the unallied races, so like Light and Darkness and such, which would be interesting. Again, a Duel Your Friends online card, but that is slightly different from the other one. Flipping it over to the creature, we got a Blastforge Scrapper, which is just a 3 mana 3000 vanilla. In the final hours of Water's assault on Blastforge City, Draken Engineers cobbled together whatever war machines they could. We've got Stingwing, which is a 2 mana 4500 blocker skirmisher, and when this creature wins a battle, banish it. I mean, it's like a Bloody Skeetle, but with 500 extra power, but it's a dual civ, so not impressed I guess. 4 mana 2000 Slayers, so we got this card in Duel Masters as well. I think it was called Bone Assassin the Ripper. Then we have Bladefish, 3 mana for 2000 vanilla. I'm kind of surprised that this late in the game's lifespan, because we're already like some amount of sets down the line, they're still printing shitty vanillas like this. 2 mana for 3000 power creature, this is, I mean, not bad, it's a dual civ card. And we have Crystal Paladin, but this is an Aqua Reflector Nomulus. It's a 6 mana 2000 blocker that can't attack, and when this creature enters the battle zone you may draw a card, and if it's banished you may return it to your hand instead. I am not impressed and I am mad because Crystal Paladin is one of my favorite Duel Masters cards, and they did him really dirty, it seems. I mean, it's not terrible, but I don't think you would really play this in good decks. Then we have Glimmergloom Quartz. We've had a Quartz before. It boosts all of your Light and Darkness creatures. Sky Talon Harrier. It's a squadron leader. Whenever this creature attacks, choose one of your other creatures. It gets fast attack until the end of turn. So this is interesting in an aggressive deck. I could see it, but for 4 mana it's incredibly slow. Then Phase Scout, 3 mana for 2000. This creature can't be blocked, and whenever this creature attacks, choose one of your other creatures. It can't be blocked this turn. I mean, it's not great, but at the very least it's better than Bladefish. And this is weird, they printed these 2 cards in the same set, but one is just better than the other in 2 different ways, so I don't know what to say about that. Next, Shattered Alliances Booster Pack. Let's see what we get in this one. These guys can just go anywhere, just watch. Catch every action-packed second of the Kaijudo animated series. I did watch the animated series. I didn't particularly like it because they weren't playing card games, but it was a decent show, I suppose. Haunted Harvest, 4 mana 3000 blocker, and when this creature blocks you may put the top card of your deck into your mana zone, so it's ramp on a slow blocker. I could see it. Blastforge Scrapper again. Heliosphere, 3 mana for 3000. I always like the artworks on Oracles, I've said this before, or Battlespheres as they are named here. I just like the simple ball artwork. Next up, Goop Striker Slayer. If this creature would be banished, put it into your mana zone instead. So again, it's a very slow ramp card. Jarbala Keeper. I like how this card looks like. I mean, it's just a 4 mana 4000 vanilla, but it looks cool. And it comes with a story. Just south of the Nexus lies Jarbala Forest, home to a prideful beastkin tribe of cat warriors. Territorial and fierce, the keepers remain vigilant, ready to strike at any intruders who enter. Next up we have Cursed Eye Blackfeather. It's another card based on Blackfeather, and it's a 5 mana 3000. Whenever your opponent discards a card, you may draw a card. Interesting. If you remember from before, the other Blackfeather that we got, I think it was one of our first rares. There we go, yeah. It had the Mongrel Man effect, where whenever an enemy creature is banished, you may draw a card. This one rewards you for discarding your opponent's. So whenever your opponent discards a card, you may draw a card. So they kept the flavor of the card, just in a slightly different way. Wild Growth, put up to 2 cards from your hand into your mana zone, ends as a Shield Blast. Then we have Centos, it's a 5 mana 5000 plus. And the plus is whenever this creature blocks, it gets plus 2000 power until the end of turn. So that's interesting, it's basically 7000 power when blocking, but you're trading off some power if you're attacking with it. Then Cavern Mode Quartz, again it's just a quartz that gives your other Darkness in Nature creatures plus 1000 power. And we have one more Shattered Alliances booster pack, the last one of this set. Let's see if we can pull another foil out of it. Kaijudo Duel Day, duel at your dojo. Grab a friend and head to a game store near you every week to join the battle. I really wish I could have done that, but I couldn't because I lived in Europe and this game was only released in the United States, sadly. Flipping over the cards, we have Aqua Trooper XJ3, which is a 5 mana 2000 power, powerful attacker plus 3000, and if it would be banished, return it to your hand instead. I will say I really like the aesthetic of the fire and water card. I think this dual civ combination in particular looks really good with blue and red. Then Headstrong Wanderer, it's whenever this creature attacks, each of your other beastkins get plus 2000 power until the end of turn. I mean, it's better than a vanilla, I suppose. Terrahound, it's just a 4 mana 5000 power vanilla creatures that gets a power boost because it's a dual civ. Spire Puppet, I've seen this card before. When it enters the battle zone, your opponent discards a card at random. So it's like Locomotiver from Duel Masters, but it's not a shield trigger, but instead it does have 2500 power, which is a bit better. Then Wavebreaker Tribe, it's just the 2 mana 3000 power that we've seen before. And wow, an 8 mana spell card, this better be good for 8 mana. You can either put a creature named Eternal Haven from your hand into the battle zone, or draw a card, then you may put a non-evolution creature that is level 7 or less and has blocker from your hand into the battle zone. Interesting. So I guess you can cheat out Eternal Haven for 2 mana. I do know this card because it's very iconic. Or you can pay 8 mana for a 7 mana blocker, but you also get to draw a card. I actually really like this card. I think it's cool and interesting. I would definitely like to play around with it. Gaunt Boneweaver is a 4 mana 3000 blocker, and when it blocks, target enemy creature gets minus 2000 power until the end of turn. Repulse is tap target enemy creature, and if you have 2 or fewer shields, put the top card of your deck into your shield zone face down as a new shield. This card is very interesting. I think it's very satisfying to get this as a shield trigger. Like, you stop an attack and then you get another shield, and this can really put a dent into aggressive decks' plans. But hard casting this from your hand for 6 mana seems absolutely miserable, so I'm not sure about it. And again, we have Skytalon Harrier that we have seen before. And we're on to our last 2 booster packs. Now, interestingly enough, these 2 are 14 card booster packs, because the point of them, as far as I can tell, was that you could play draft with them. You would take 3 of these boosters and you would draft a deck with your friends, which sounds cool in theory. Of course, we're not gonna be doing that today. We're just gonna be opening it up and seeing what we get for 14 cards. So, step through the veil, discover more about Kaijudo at kaijudo.com. This is really like they ran out of ideas of what to put on these cards at the front. It does feel a lot chunkier. Of course, there's like 50% more cards here, so let's see what we get. We got a Pentarch with just a 4 mana 5000 power blocker. Tideseer, didn't see this guy before. He looks very familiar. When this creature enters the battle zone, you may draw a card, and if you do, discard a card. We might have seen this effect on a different card actually. Then Emberthorn, it's a 3 mana 3000 that has a very long flavor text that you bet your ass I'm gonna read. Prickleback and I used to chase amber horns when we were kids. One day an old pack alpha tossed Prickleback into the air with its horns, so I started using that trick. That's when Prickleback stopped making fun of my horns. Good. Very interesting. Then we have Veil Bubble. It's a 2 mana 2000 return target creature that has power 4000 or less from the battle zone to its owner's hand. So it's kind of like a Spiral Gate. In this game, they nerfed Spiral Gates to 4 mana, and so this one you get the original Spiral Gate for 2 mana, but it has a restriction that the creature needs to have 4000 or less power. Gorgalisk is a 3 mana 3000 vanilla. I will say the cards so far in this draft pack have been very boring compared to what we've seen before, but I guess maybe the more interesting cards are at the end. I don't know, let's see. 4 mana 2000, it's a blocker and a skirmisher. When this creature enters the battle zone, look at the top 3 cards. You may reveal a creature from among them that has blocker and put it into your hand. I can see this working if you're drafting a blocker deck. I mean, you're getting a +1 on a body. Whirlpool Warden, it's another blocker, and if this creature would be banished while you have an evolution creature in the battle zone, return this creature to your hand instead. I don't know how reliable it is in draft to draft around evolution creatures, but there we go. Speaking of which, we got an evolution creatures. You can put it on one of your fire creatures, so this is when they started to do, I guess, the whole evolution on top of a specific civilization instead of a specific race to make it easier to play evolution creatures. It has Unleash, which means to proc this effect you need to detach one of the evolution materials, and it gets plus 3000 power and double breaker until the end of the turn. I mean, it's not terrible. For 3 mana you are getting a double breaker, although it only double breaks once. But it could still be something interesting to try out in aggressive decks. Woolly Tusker. They turned Smashhorn Q into Woolly Tusker, which is a 3 mana 2000 power creature, and while you have an evolution creature in the battle zone, this creature gets plus 2000 power and can be brought by creatures that have less power than it. So it's not bad if you're drafting an evolution deck, although again, I'm not sure how reliable that is in draft. And for the record, I don't think any of these cards would be playable in a constructed format, but maybe I'm wrong. What do I know about Kaijudo? 2 mana 3000 blocker and skirmisher, just the classic. Then we have another evolution creature, 6 mana evolution. That's really expensive for an evolution creature, but you can put it on top of your nature creature, so at least it has that generic effect. And it has a ninja pumpkin over here in the middle. You search your deck, you may reveal a creature from it and put that creature into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Not bad, it's a double breaking evolution that gives you card advantage, could be worse. This actually reminds me a lot of Neopha from Duel Masters, but it's generic in that you can put it on top of any nature creature, so there we go. Grasslands Goliath is just an 8 mana 9000 vanilla with double breaker. You would not be happy to open this up, I would imagine. Then a Skyforce Champion evolution you put on top of your light creatures, and when it enters the battle zone, you may look at the top 4 cards and reveal a spell among them and put it into your hand, then put the rest at the bottom of your deck. Not bad, it can give card advantage, it is just a 3 mana 5000 power evolution. And another evolution creature. Okay, so they did include a lot of evolution creatures in this, so maybe it is viable to draft around them after all. You once again put this on top of your nature creatures, and during your opponent's turn this creature gets plus 4000 power, so it's quite difficult to remove. And finally, our final booster pack from Vortex. This is when they introduced the Vortex evolution creatures that have to be evolved on 2 things. And also, we haven't really gotten a foil in quite a while. It does seem like my initial luck has run out, but let's see if we can get one from this final pack that I will be opening today. Let's see, the card on the back is, "Are you ready for booster draft?" So of course they are promoting the booster draft that they were trying to go for with these packs. And we have Sandstorm Prowler. Pounds, this creature can attack untapped creatures, and while of your other creatures is tapped, this creature can't be attacked, which is alright I suppose, but I'm not impressed. 2 mana 1500 power. If one of your creatures that has power 6000 or more would be banished, you may banish this card instead. So this reminds me a lot of that bird, I think it was called Lux, that had the same power ratio and the same effect but for dragons specifically. Lumbering Colosseum is a 4 mana 4000 living city. It's just a vanilla creature, but it does look very interesting, I will say that much. Jetpack Tag, 5 mana for 3000 speed attacker. I mean, it's not great, I don't think you would be excited to play this in a constructed format, but speed attackers in limited are quite good, so if you draft this card I don't think you're that unhappy. Tide Gulper, blocker and powerful block for 3000, interesting. We didn't really have this in Duel Masters, but basically while blocking, this gets more power. I'm starting to get voice cracks over here. Aerial Arcavore. Arcavore, is that how you read it? Probably. It's a 4 mana 4000 blocker skirmisher, and whenever you cast a spell, this creature gets plus 1000 power until the end of turn and can attack this turn as though it didn't have skirmisher. So that's actually pretty good, like it's better than a vanilla I would say, and of course if you cast a spell it can even attack as a blocker. Vicious Coffer, when this creature enters the battle zone, put the top 3 cards of your deck into your discard pile. I mean, I can see this working if you're trying to go for some sort of graveyard synergy, which maybe is a thing in Kaijudo, I wouldn't know. Next up we have Creeper Snare, Shield Blast. Put target enemy creature that has power 3000 or less from the battle zone into your opponent's mana zone, so it's removal for weenies. It's not bad. I'm definitely more excited about the cards in this booster than the cards in the previous one, so it does look to me at least that this would be a more fun booster to draft. Then we have High Dragon, 6 mana for 5000. This creature can attack tapped creatures on the turn it enters the battle zone. So it's like a pseudo speed attacker but only for creatures. It's like removal on a stick essentially. Jarbala Hatchery, we've had some things from Jarbala before. I think they were mentioning something about a city or something. You tap 2 fewer mana to summon the second creature would summon each turn. Interesting. This is a big discount if you're flooding the board with creatures. This is actually really big. And we have a super rare. We do have a foil in our very final pack, and it is a very cool looking one. I have no idea what it does, but it looks just absolutely sick. It's Eternal Gaia Dragon. It's 8 mana for 11,000. You may summon this creature from your mana zone, and if this creature would be banished, put it into your mana zone instead. This is actually really cool. I would be very excited to play around with this card. It's just like infinite value. If you don't have what to do with your mana on a turn, you can always just spend 8 mana to cast this guy. I really like it. It's good. Then Aqua Infiltrator. 4 mana for 1000. When this creature attacks you may draw a card, and if this creature would be banished, return it to your hand instead. It's something I suppose. Daunting Presence, Shield Blast. Choose a number equal to the power of one of your creatures. Until the start of your next turn, enemy creatures that have less power than that number can attack only creatures. So it's kind of a defensive spell, but it's a bit wonky and difficult to use. And for our very last card we have Ignis, the Attack Raptor, and when it enters the battle zone you may search your deck. You may put a creature that has Valko in its name from the deck into the battle zone, then shuffle your deck. Wow, okay, so this is like a 2-in-1 creature. You play this and it comes with another body. For 5 mana this seems really good. I don't even know what Valko is, but I mean 5 mana for 2 bodies can never be bad, right? So that's it, that is all of the cards. We have opened, I believe, 17 booster packs, and we got 1, 2, 3, and then these 6. So we got 9 foils and 17 booster packs. That's more than a 50% ratio. That's definitely better than what you would get from Duel Masters booster packs. Again, I'm not sure if I just got incredibly lucky or if that's just the expected pull rate from Kaijudo booster packs, but I am happy with these pulls. I don't know if I'll ever be using these cards to play Kaijudo, but at the very least I got some shiny looking cardboard. I hope you enjoyed this. I don't know how many of you are actually interested in Kaijudo, but if you did enjoy it, let me know, and I'll see you next time, duelists. Take care.